Hey everybody, back again. We're going to call this episode, it's kind of like, I'm going to call it unofficial story time. It's officially a true story, but I'm not sure if it falls into the 100% parameters of what all the story times want to be on this channel as far as fishing, hunting, outdoors. So I can kind of stretch it a little bit here and there, but anyway, this true story, very funny story. It didn't start off so funny, but it had a very, very happy ending. So I want to tell you about this story. This was probably, man, I want to say like mid 80s. Seems like all my stories are like 20 years ago, 2 decades ago, or whatever. But this was probably like the mid 80s. And so, as I mentioned before, I used to dispatch for the Delaware State Police. So we would have two main frequencies back then. It's probably way more sophisticated. Everything probably goes by laptop nowadays and stuff like that. But um, we had what was called high band, which was the main frequency you dispatched all the calls on, and that was the high traffic channel. And then we had low band, which was called, pretty much like the data channel. You would, people would, you know, that's where you do all your driver's license checks, see if people are wanted. And just it was like the data channel. So anyway, this I'll never forget. I'm pretty sure this was a Saturday, but this was like like I said, I can't even remember the year. But we were working, and this trooper gets sent to a call for an abandoned child at the service area in Newark, Delaware. In the service area, the Delaware I-95 in Delaware was only, I want to say, 12 miles long, 22 miles, not very long. I think it was 22 miles long. Maybe it might be 12. It's a very short road. Delaware's not a big state. I mean, you could just like blink and you're out in the next state. But the so apparently what had happened was this young child, who we found out later his name was Marc. He was in two like caravans, two minivan type vehicles, and they came from Canada. So what they did was his father had visitation for whatever, like a month or 2 weeks, whatever it was, and they were going from somewhere in Canada. I wanted to say Montreal, but I'm literally just making that out. I have no idea. Somewhere in Canada. But so they drive all the way to Disney, and they have their blast and doing all this stuff. Whenever they would stop at different, like restroom break stops and stuff like that, there was a like Marc's uncle, the little kid Marc, his uncle was in another caravan. They had kids, and so like the kids would all get out and like mingle and chit chat and I want to go with Uncle Marc and all this stuff. So there was a lot of little kids involved. I don't remember the exact amount, but Marc's father, who had visitation, I guess was remarried. So then Marc's uncle was also married, and there's a picture like a bunch of, I don't remember how many, like picture like 6 kids or whatever. So they're just running around just being kids and stuff like that. So they stop at the Delaware rest area. I forget I think it was called Stuckey's. It was I think it was like a multi-restaurant type thing. Like when I say multi-restaurant, like a different variety of menu and stuff like that. But anyway, so they're all getting ready to leave, and this little kid Marc, he goes to the bathroom. The rest of the crew, they're out there, popping in their little minivans, whatever, and stuff. Everybody's all happy. They're all buckled in, and boom, they drive away. Right? They just cruising on up the road. So I happened to be on the radio. I heard this call, and then I remember hearing like it kind of set off like a ping in my head because I can't remember if I said it in the original dispatch call or when the troop, I think it was in an original dispatch call that the kid, like, he lost his family. He only speaks French. So I'm like, all right, I heard that. So I'm like, all right, I'm clicking in the back of my head. And I knew the trooper that was going out there was, I knew he didn't, he wasn't even close to like French or Cajun or anything like that. So I'm like, all right. So I tell him, I said, I told the dispatcher, who I forget who it was, but I said, tell him to go to low band. I said, so, he clicks over. I forget what his call sign was at that particular time of day. And I said, if you have any problems, with the language, I said, I'm here to help you out, and, we can work something out. So he does the old 10-4 and all this stuff. So he goes in there, and basically he comes back, a couple minutes later, and he's like, yeah, he's like, this kid, this is before you had cell phones, and you could, so we're kind of chit-chatting a little bit. And I said, all right, no problem. I said, I tell you what you do, I said, take him to Troop 6. And I didn't give the order because I didn't have the authority to give the order, but I kind of like made the suggestion, and I'd already been on the phone with the desk sergeant at Troop 6. So I want to clarify that. So, my mom was working at a jewelry store. She worked half days on a Saturday. So I contacted her, and I had to work. We were working like crazy, long shift hours. I think that was the time period we worked 2 10-hour days and 2 14-hour nights. And I think I was on a 10-hour day, and we were short-staffed like we always were as a civilian employee over there. But so I said, hey, Mom, can you do me a favor? Can you go to Troop 6? I tell her this young Canadian boy, he doesn't speak any English, and we're trying to get all the information about the parents and all this stuff. So back in the old days with the state police, they would do a thing that was called a teletype. Basically, it was basically the old era of an email, but it would just be like a it would basically be like a printout that would go to. So they sent that to all the agencies all up and down the East Coast. They knew they were heading north, so they knew, what region they had to send these teletypes out. It probably went out to like 1,000 or 2,000 police agencies. So anyway, so my mom gets to the state police Troop 6 in Price's Corner, Delaware, and she's there, and she's talking to the kid. The kid's feeling more comfortable now, and all this. So so now I find a way to weasel out of work a little bit early. I'm trying to make sure this kid's feeling comfortable, because like even back then my mom wasn't like a spring chicken or anything, and like I knew there was a huge age differential, and I had some thoughts in my head that how I could help this kid. So you hear birds chirping. I got birds all over the damn place. There's one bird, like they're trying to interrupt my video here. But so I get to Troop 6, and come to find out through all this teletype, they like this. When I tell you this went on for hours, like many hours. I forget how many hours it was exactly, but my mom gets talking to the kid, gets the kid's phone number. They, the state police, they call the mom, tell her what's going on, and she's not happy because the sons are like on like a 2-week visitation or whatever it is. So she's having a cow, like her son got like misplaced. So mom's going to react like mom's going to do. But so the desk sergeant's saying, hey, we have one of our dispatcher's moms here. She speaks French. Can she talk to you? So they get talking to each other. They had like a 5-minute conversation. So the lady feels very confident to release this young child, Marc, into the custody of my mother. And everything was documented through the state police. So prior to that, I had arrived and kind of took this kid was like calm as could be. He was like, I pictured like if I was that age, I'd probably be crying like, oh my God, what's going on? But the kid was calm as could be. So we took him around. I took him, like I gave him this like the greatest tour a little stranded kid could have. Took him into the jail cells. We're doing all this stuff. Gave him like police caps and patches, and this kid was like he went from like feeling like he was abandoned to he almost like found a new home. But he was all cool. But this is not even funny, but I kind of like played a little prank on him, and I probably should have not done that. But he goes into the one jail cell, and I kind of like joked around. I said, "Yeah, that's where we're gonna spend the night." And he kind of like he started like tearing. I said, "No, Mark, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding." So he ran up to me, hugged me, and everything. So he and I we got a bond like this really quick. It was really cool. So so we ended up doing all this stuff, and my mom takes Mark back home. Now I'm remembering the story a little bit better. I had to go back to work, so all this is going on, and finally, when the father, I may have told us a little bit out of order. When the father finally gets to the Canadian border, or close to the Canadian border, they realize like, oh my God, who's got Mark? And like nobody had Mark, so they were freaking out. So they were contacting all the authorities. So, they were at that border, and that's somebody had the teletype. So they told them. So like they end up all these phones were ringing, and we finally got contacted, and so we're like, no problem. We got Mark for the night. It's okay, and everything like that. So they finally they literally drove nonstop and drove back. Well, at the time, when I was dispatching for state police, the county police and the state police were on the same dispatch center. So I ended up like Mark slept for hours, and then I went and picked him up later, and but prior to that, my mom had all these old like French magazines that were like 20 years outdated from, and that was like in the 80s. So these things were like from the 60s probably, or 70s or whatever. So Mark kind of got a kick out of that for a while, and apparently he like was really into like playing decks of cards. So when I take him back to the dispatch center, we're just waiting for his father to show up. So I'm taking around. Everybody knows the story. It's like this is the hottest thing since like sliced bread, whatever. So all the dispatchers, I worked with a lot of ladies, and they're like, "Oh, hi, Mark." They're talking to me. Really cool kid, very cool kid. So go to this one dispatcher that works for the county, and he kind of like jumps up in his face and he goes, "Wayne Gretzky," and like the kid just like literally latched onto me, like, "Please protect me," because he thought this guy was the biggest asshole in the world, or excuse me, idiot in the world. And I kind of felt the same way at that time, but so I ended up telling him in French that he was just kidding, he's sorry, So we moved on and everything went good. So then I took Mark out of that environment. We went down to the break room where he could kind of like regroup and just chill out for a little bit. So he was playing with his cards, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he could speak perfect English. He would do all these card tricks, and he goes like, pick a card, any card, and everything. So I was just cracking up. So he was just doing all these card tricks, but he could speak perfect English with the card tricks. So he's like shuffling the cards and all this. I'm like, oh my God, these kids are like a riot. So I take him back down the hall later, and so he's going over to every dispatch, pick a card, doing all these card tricks, right? Like the calmest kid in the world, right? So then eventually, I'm just waiting for hours. Like I already worked like almost, I don't know, at that point with waiting for the parents, it was probably well over a 16-hour day, but I was happy because we're doing something nice for a kid. But so he actually went for a tour around the county police building a little bit, and he got to see a lot of things. So there was only one person in the whole process that made him feel uncomfortable, and I know that dispatcher didn't mean to do it. He was trying to be funny, but kind of got like too aggressive in his face, and I didn't like that a whole lot. But so the father shows up. Everybody gets reunited. They're thanking me, and oh my God, the father, like he smelled like he hadn't taken a bath in like 24 hours. And I'm sure he was sweating bullets the whole, up and back, when he realized he lost the kid. But Um, so we stayed in contact for a long time, and I would send them for a long time. We'd send them letters, and the kid Mark was such a cool little kid. Like I said, at that time he was probably, I don't know, I want to say like 10, 11, 12, but we'd send him police patches. I started sending police patches from all over, like the city police, the county police, and just whatever I could do, to make his bad experience a better experience. And he ended up being like I have no idea where he is now or what he's doing, but I kind of wish I had stayed more in contact. We probably would have if Facebook was a thing back then. But anyway, so that's I'm stretching the boundaries for this channel, but I thought it was kind of important to let people know that there's like unusual stories, things, true life stories that can happen out there in the world. So that's one. I'm recording this. I'm debating whether I'm gonna release it. Like, but it was very fulfilling. And oh, here's another thing I totally forgot about. I There was a senior dispatcher had been at the dispatch center forever. Little tiny skinny guy they called Flea because he was about the size of a flea. And but he was kind of very influential because his father had been within the state police as some civilian uh, job. I think his father was a mechanic or something. But this guy writes a letter of recommendation to the colonel of the state police. Next thing I know, I'm getting invited to this awards ceremony at the state police headquarters with my mom, and we're both being awarded like some civilian honorary plaque certificate thing for just doing what we felt like was just a common sense thing to do. But anyway, that's the end of that. That was unofficial story time. If you see it on my channel, then I posted it. But um, I miss working for the state police back then. I was just a civilian employee. All my best friends were troopers, and just a lot of good memories. But that is one that's definitely going to stand out. Thanks for tuning in.